Welcome to episode 5 of the Mind Your Being podcast. If you listened to episode 4, you'll know I began a really important conversation with Dr Justin Keogh, Associate Professor of Exercise Science at Bond University, Australia, about the benefits of exercise, particularly resistance training, for our physical and mental health. And we also discuss the importance of maintaining strength as we age, especially in relation to muscle loss and falls prevention. In this episode, we're continuing that conversation with a focus on practical strategies. What resistance training actually looks like, how much we really need to maintain strength and function. It's not as much as you would think. The concept of exercise snacking and how short bursts of movement can make a big difference. Why adequate protein matters more as we age, and powerful insights from the Positive Aging Summit on how good physical function supports independence and a high quality of life. Whether you're just starting out or refining your routine, this episode is packed with simple, science-backed ways to help you move confidently through midlife and beyond. Let's dive in. So you mentioned resistance training and how that can help slow the decline of sarcopenia. Can you explain what you mean by resistance training in case listeners who aren't familiar with that term, and how does it help us maintain or build the muscle?
Yeah, so resistance training is probably the term used most in research and now in allied health, but all it means is basically some form of strength or weight training. So we're doing things that might last up to perhaps typically the 30 to 60-second mark, where the resistance or the load against your body to do a movement is quite high, that it limits you to that sort of time frame. So a weightlifter lifting the clean and jerk or the snatch we see in the Olympics is an ultimate level of resistance training where that lift takes a number of seconds. So that's our maximum strength capacity. Typically, we might do an exercise that involves sort of 8 to 15 repetitions. And if we think of each repetition involving an up phase, that might take 2 to 3 seconds, and a down phase that takes the same time. Again, you got that 30 to 60-second sort of window. So an older person at home who might want to incorporate some resistance training but not feel comfortable going to the gym or having one close by, even practicing that sit to stand maneuver multiple times in a row. So every time they get out of a chair, trying to do it without their arms if possible, and perhaps adding additional sit to stands every time they do it. And if you can do 8 to 10 sit to stands in, so some tests we do for sit to stand performance is how fast you can do 5 or how many you can do in 30 seconds. So if it takes you more than, I think it's around 17 seconds to do those 5 sit to stands, some studies have indicated that sort of threshold is indicative of that sarcopenia coming more likely and those negative effects. So that's a simple test you can do at home. Find a regular chair, start in the seated position, keep your hands on your chest, stand up to a fully extended position so your body's in a beautiful vertical straight line. Sit down so that your glutes touch the chair and stand up again. So that in itself is an assessment, but also an activity you can do at home. Going to the gym is probably the best way for most people, particularly the benefits there is you can get a trained exercise professional. Physiotherapists and exercise physiologists might be the best if you've got some more complex health concerns. But again, every gym will have a range of personal trainers. Many of them are now, I suppose, as the profession is evolving, there's lots of personal trainers who are now in their 50s and 60s. And they're now starting to realize these sort of benefits themselves or some of the additional challenges they're facing. And they might not be interested in working with a bunch of 18-year-olds whose goal is to get peaked biceps and ripped abs. They might be more focusing on people of their own demographic and helping those people maintain a fit and healthy sort of life. So many of those people can, again, give you some very good, simple exercises you can start with. And typically in a gym, you might focus initially on some machines to start with, just because they take away some of the the challenges in balancing weights, etc., make it a little bit less cognitively demanding. And the recommendation, regardless if you're doing it at home or in a gym, the first month or so, make sure you're doing those exercises with as good a technique as possible. So again, someone to help you is good for that. And we have something called repetitions in reserve. So what that means is if I do 10 reps with a particular weight and have 5 repetitions in reserve, I could have done 15 repetitions in total, but I stopped at 10. So particularly in that first 4 weeks, it's useful to have it, what I would say is, again, something like 5 repetitions or so in reserve. So you're not pushing yourself too hard. You can still maintain control of that exercise, and you're not going to get too much of what we call delayed onset muscle soreness, or what we call in the field DOMS, from those sessions. Because if you are not overly familiar with that sort of activity and you go hard, those muscles could be sore for 3 to 4 days, like very sore. And if your quads are sore every time you sit down on a chair or stand up, it just hurts. So by doing that, and then over time, moving away from some of the machines, using lunges, using dumbbells or barbells, doing modified deadlifts, which again is in essence picking up something off the ground, like even something simple like a basket of laundry that you're hanging out on the line with, depending on your washing machine, if there's still a bit of water in some of those things, can easily be 5 to 10 kilos in a box that's not easy to lift. So yeah, progressing into those exercises that look a bit more like the activities of daily living that you find challenging. So again, steps, we can do a whole range of step ups and step downs in gyms as well. Those again are great exercises that strengthen the muscles, can maintain that muscle mass, but help you move and control your body and balance in those activities that replicate things that you want to be able to do in life. So particularly if you've got a house that has stairs and you are adamant you want to continue to live in that house, that step up and step down type exercise would be a very important exercise for you to incorporate at some point in that exercise program.
That's such a good point because, as you said, midlife and later, we're not necessarily, we're not going to the gym to get the abs. We've got to look at our physical function. So, like you just said, if you have stairs in your house, or if you want to be able to carry your own groceries in from your car, if you want
Mm-hmm.
to be able to pick up grandchildren, it's about doing the exercises in the gym at home that are going to allow you to have the strength to do those everyday tasks.
And that's a great example. Even I forgot carrying groceries or things in each hand. So we can easily do, and again, amazing that my athletic research and aging research intersect. Some of the athletic groups I've done research in is the sport of strongman, sport I competed in for many years as well. So probably my favorite event there was the farmer's walk, where you carry heavy weights in each hand over a set distance for time. So we can easily do that in a gym with dumbbells. We can also do that one hand at a time, which is also called the suitcase carry. So again, if you're carrying a suitcase or an object in one side, that's again, even 5 kilograms, how that's going to pull your body in that direction, affect your balance. So being able to walk with these unequal loads on one side of the body is, again, if you think of someone who wants to do gardening, how common is that? So there's a range of things, again, that you can do in the gym that are very similar to some of those physical challenges and those activities of daily living. If we go back to the lunge, if you want to play lawn bowls, how important is the lunge? And again, lawn bowls is a great activity that has all the social benefits as well.
So there's going to be some people listening that are going to be feeling intimidated by the thought of going to a gym.
For sure.
I've only recently, probably in the last 10 months, gone back to a gym. I hadn't stepped foot in one since I was probably 20.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing how important it is to build that muscle mass, I've gone back. What advice would you give to people new to resistance training who are wanting to do it safely and if they're intimidated by a gym?
Yeah. So if they don't feel comfortable going to the gym, or again, getting to a gym is just too impossible for whatever reasons at this point of life, what we call exercise snacking can work. So I've sort of mentioned it in principle before, doing those sit to stands at multiple times of the day. And this sort of approach has come out of some really good occupational therapists who will have you basically stick little post-it notes around your house. So it might be on your favorite chair, again, where you'd be looking, and it just says sit to stand or squat or something. So every time you get out of that chair, you're going to do some additional squat repetitions. When you're in the kitchen, even if you're waiting for the kettle to boil or something on the stove, you might do some calf raises. We know the calf muscles are really important for your walking speed as well. So strengthening those muscles and being able to balance on your tippy toes, still have a hand on a bench to start with. But again, if you can do calf raises and maintain balance on the ball of your foot without touching anything, that again is indicative of you having a high level of balance. As you get a bit more functional, start to do some lunges as well. Start with a hand on a bench or something like that. You might do, again, different rooms or something, might just be different activities. So you're, in essence, working a range of different muscle groups and movement patterns. So there might be something like a modified push-up somewhere. You might do that on the ground. Again, it might be on your knees instead of your feet to start with. You could do a push-up with your hands on a kitchen bench or a table. Because again, one of the issues if you do fall, unfortunately, is it is possible you can be on the ground for hours or even days before someone finds you. So if you live alone, that can happen. And again, that can actually result in premature mortality. So having the upper body strength to assist you to at least get your upper body into a seated position then enables you to figure out a way to stand up from there. And because your phone might be a couple of meters away if you need to call. So that upper body pushing strength is important. And again, that's somewhat similar to putting some stuff up on a high shelf. So even if you've gone out and bought some cans of fruit that might be a kilogram or two in weight, even just putting them up on a shelf, do you still have the function to do that? And then the upper body ability to pull things towards you. A little bit harder. So again, buying a range of light to moderate TheraBands, and even stores like Kmart are now selling them at
$5, $7.
$5, $10, that sort of thing. So having those TheraBands then enables you to do a whole host of other exercises. So again, that push up, if that's too difficult, you can get a light TheraBand around your back and just push it in front of you, which again is that chest press push up position, but at a load that is perhaps relative to your strength at the moment. And then with that progression, as that perhaps gets easy, you can start to do sets of say 15. That's now telling you, all right, I've improved. I'm on the right track. I need now to get something a bit heavier. And if you incorporate that with your sit to stands or your lunges, you are now at a point you don't necessarily need to go to the gym, but again, that muscle mass and strength is definitely there. So if people in their 80s still have that ability to do 10 sit to stands, can do some lunges, can do some push-ups on their knees, etc., they are again in a great place to maintain their independence, live in their own home, and continue to do many of those activities of daily living that brings them joy.
You mentioned before one of your PhD students doing a program, I think you said 30 minutes twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the minimum standard or recommendation we'd be making to people, even if they've never exercised before?
So resistance training is a really valuable form of training that we don't need to do a huge amount of. Unfortunately, things like aerobic training for endurance athletes, you look at triathletes, marathon runners, cyclists, they might be putting in 10 to 20 hours plus training a week, particularly if they want to do an Ironman type event, which is a lot of everything. So strength training, resistance training, it's interesting that we don't need as much. And particularly as we age, the amount of heavy activities that we do or fast activities we do is really limited. So I mentioned even before about 30 minutes in aged care standing up and walking per day. When was the last time, again, I don't do many of these either with my knee injury, but how often do 50-year-olds jump for maximum distance or height or throw cricket balls or things or rocks like we did as kids? Land out of trees and trampolines. We don't do these high intensity activities. We often don't lift heavy things either. And again, as kids, particularly as a boy growing up playing rugby league and just wrestling my mates, everything was resistance training, trying to be better than everyone else in that group. And as we get older, we lose those activities. We're too busy working, or some people might consider that, oh, playing's for kids. So just doing these things at home that are heavier than normal activities and then gradually progressing them is what resistance training is all about.
What about post 60, 70? Have you seen benefits for older people who have never trained with resistance before and they start an exercise program later in life?
Yeah, we've been involved in a host of studies of that category. Professor Maria Fiatrain Singh from the University of Sydney had probably the first published in 94. Some people in their 100s in these aged care facilities in the US. And again, massive increases in lower body strength, function, walking speed, stair climbing ability, and a number of them who were initially using different walking aids transitioned back to a lower level of support. So some who were using a walking frame then were able to walk with a walking cane, and some with a cane were able to go, I don't need that either. So, and again, Samantha Fiend's PhD that I mentioned earlier, 12-week program, the most complicated exercise equipment she purchased for that first study was dumbbells up to 4 kilograms, again from Kmart. So it was body weight exercises using chairs. There were some standing activities, and her extended study that went for 24 weeks, which focused more on the standing and the walking, showed even greater increases in that walking ability. So exercises for older adults, particularly in aged care, is really important. And that strength work is fundamental, but we also, as I mentioned before, they need to do balance exercises in a standing position, and they also need to practice different aspects of walking if you're going to maximize that reablement of their walking ability and reduce their risk of falls while they're walking. Because unfortunately, older adults in aged care, to some extent, don't fall that often because they're not standing that often. So there is potentially a risk of them falling more if they're standing and walking more, because it's just that possibility. The research indicates, again, the crucial incorporation of those balance and gait retraining activities to make sure that additional strength and confidence they now have in their body is also complemented by the balance and the walking ability that they can safely walk. And they're aware perhaps of what those potential risks that they need to be focusing on in their environment can be.
It just shows that the more you exercise, even if you're starting from no exercise, you're just going to keep reaping the benefits and you're going to keep getting progressively stronger anyway.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing. Like, I'm very different to maybe many people. I still have training diaries from the mid 90s when I started powerlifting before I did strongman and other sports. So I still keep them today. So I get an idea. Like, my strength will vary a little bit across the year, just with work being busy or get sick or an injury from jiu-jitsu or something. But I'm still trying to do personal bests, or there might be new exercises I've never done that much, which again, I can get PBs on. So again, having some record of what you're doing, or having someone around you as a family member, even just taking like a video every month of you doing an activity. Grandma, you did 3 sit-to-stands last month. You're now doing 6. Like, that is again a really amazing level of feedback that you can get from someone, or again, you'll often see it yourself. Or again, the other thing too is, even if they don't necessarily see that progression, what they're doing in the training aspect, they might then realize, oh, the stairs are now feeling so much easier, or I can now carry some groceries from the garage into the kitchen myself instead of waiting on someone else, to maybe a son or daughter or a partner, to do it for them.
Which is going to increase their confidence.
Hmm.
Just quickly wanted to touch on protein. I know that as we age, it actually becomes harder for our bodies to synthesize the protein that we're consuming.
Hmm.
So, can you explain to us why it's important to keep consuming adequate levels of protein and that those levels may actually increase as we get older?
So The requirements of protein and dietary recommendations for protein have been something that's evolved over many years. Those numbers have typically increased a little bit with research in the last 10 to 15 years. So a younger person often recommended anything from zero point 0.8 to about 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. That'll be elevated in athletic populations where the protein breakdown is increased just as a consequence of training or contacts in the football codes, for example. Older adult, the current recommendations are typically 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So again, for a simple example, if we go with someone who weighs 60 kilograms, 1.2 grams would be 72 grams of protein per day, and 1.5 would be 90 grams of protein per day. So what you need to do in your own head is think of, all right, what's my body weight? Multiply by 1.2 up to 1.5. So again, it's often for most people, you might be somewhere in that 80 to 120 grams of protein per day range, maybe up to 150 for some heavier people. If you're going to eat 3 meals a day, you just have to do the division. So let's imagine you need, we'll just say 75 grams of protein per day. You eat 3 regular meals. That's an average of 25 grams of protein per meal. If you have the odd snack, that can be slightly reduced. So if you have a breakfast such as like 2 eggs on toast and a glass of milk, those 2 eggs and a glass of milk are all about 7 grams of protein each. So there's already about 21 grams of protein, and 1 to 2 slices of toast will typically give you another 5 or so grams of protein. So you've already hit your 25-gram protein target for breakfast. However, if your breakfast is like a bowl of cereal or just toast and jam and coffee, you're probably getting 5 to 6 grams of protein. Cereals can be somewhere in between. Adding yogurt to it can complement that, but just looking at your different sort of protein sources. So if you are a person who has a regular diet and doesn't subscribe to vegan or a vegetarian lifestyle, your regular meat often will have about 20 grams of protein per 100 grams. Your eggs are typically around 6 to 7 grams of protein each. A glass of milk is around 7 grams as well. So those are some of the things to consider. For those who are vegetarian or vegan, your nuts, your seeds, your soy-based products like tofu and tempeh, again, some options there, tahini, peanut butters. Unfortunately, they can come with a little bit more fat, but again, for some older people, just getting the calories in can also be an issue as well. And those types of fats are much better than the fats we find in cakes and slices that can make up in my mum's aged care facility. Again, she seems to love cakes and slices and toasted sandwiches. So she's not quite necessarily hitting all of her dietary requirements at this point of life. But interestingly, again, she doesn't have much muscle mass, but she is relatively strong for her size. And again, she walks well. Balance isn't necessarily super amazing, but she can still get on and off the ground.
And how
Yeah.
old is she?
She is 84 now, and the reason she's in aged care is her Alzheimer's.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure if you do know, but with the aged care facilities, will there be an exercise program for the people who are in the facility only if that facility offers one? Like there's no government standardized.
There is such a range, and the exercise programs can be very varied as well. So let's just put them in maybe 3 categories. Facilities that might not have any sort of real programs at all, those that have some, and those that have what we might call sort of evidence-based. So quite a few will have some sort of diversional therapists, some activities. They might call things exercise programs. Almost all of them are seated, and many of them are using dumbbells that might just go up to 1 kilogram. If we consider the average older person, the one thing that do frequently every day, even in aged care, is drink cups of tea and coffee. So you think of the weight of that mug and the 300 mils or so of fluid in there, that's already probably about 0.5 kilogram, and they're easily lifting that up to their mouth, placing it down. So again, if we want to improve that upper body strength with those exercises, those dumbbells need to be increased over time. My great colleague and friend Tim Henwood has experienced a range of aged care facilities where he'll move into or consult with, and they'll have all these 0.5 kilogram dumbbells, and he'll basically suggest get rid of them. Get some heavier things that they'll then aspire to lift. Because what we even know in gyms for athletic populations is if you have bigger weights in the gym, people are going to aspire to lift those heavier weights. If your gym only goes up to 30 kilograms and then they bring in a 35 and a 40, you'll see all these people have been stuck at 25 or 30 and now jump into the 35s and 40s. So even just giving these older people 1 and 2 and 3 kilogram dumbbells that they can see, that's a target for them to reach and strive to be able to do that. And again, the first person in that group who does it, that's the status for that person. And then once someone's reached it, everyone else wants to become like them. And then you go and buy 4 and 5 kilo dumbbells, etc. So those chair-based exercise programs can offer some benefits. Social benefits are great. They can have some level of physical benefits. The best facilities, and again, some that we saw at the Positive Aging Summit site tour in Adelaide, the Church of Christ. I might just have to give you these actual names. In Southern Cross Care, they had equipped gymnasiums. They had combinations of HUR exercise equipment that is very good for older people, keeps track of your sets and reps. So again, it's able to be progressed over time, and it's been adapted to make it easy for older adults to move in and out of these machines as well. And a host of other exercise activities. And again, there's accredited exercise physiologists delivering those programs. So those facilities are employing those people and offering, I believe, that as just an aspect of the residents' activities. So there is a variety of models in Australia. And what we're hoping to do is continue to just get the message out there. So aged care facilities and even retirement villages often will have some sort of exercise room there. And unfortunately, just having a room there doesn't always get people into it. Because again, similar to what you mentioned, people might be intimidated with a gym. So having physiotherapists or exercise physiologists who are able to run those exercise classes to get people to actually get in there and to make it fun. Like these staff we've seen had music in the background. People were like almost like singing, humming along to the songs. They were doing, I won't do it now, but ABBA sort of and that sort of dancing. These staff really know how to engage these older people. They're having fun at the same time. So it's often also that person who's delivering the exercise who really wants to be there instead of perhaps someone who's like, oh God, I've got to work with these old people.
Makes all the difference.
Yeah, so that engaging personality who really wants to be there is more important to some extent than what their CV or academic transcript says. So those people can really drive, and I've seen it in when I lived in New Zealand, a gym-based program called Never Twold. Again, the instructors there were just amazing, and they loved working with these 60 70, 80-year-olds coming to the gym. So but yeah, it has to involve progressive resistance training. Over time, the exercises need to go from seated to standing, and it needs to be challenging balance. Because even years ago, I looked at something called a meta-analysis, which is a review of all these different studies, and they do some advanced statistics to determine the overall effect. And it showed that resistance training had no effect on older people's balance. Then when I looked at all the exercise studies at that point of time, they're all seated. So I said to my daughters, who are probably something like about 9 and 6 years old at the time, or even younger, and they're both in primary school. And I said, girls, if grandma does some exercises seated, is that going to improve her balance? And they just look at me and shake their head and go, why would that happen? So those seated exercises, those regular machines are great. Get some strength, get some confidence in the body. But again, it needs to be incorporated with those balance and those gait retraining activities as well. And with that, I haven't made it as clear, perhaps, that balance and gait retraining can be things that you can do every day because they don't overly tax the body, But again, that resistance training twice a week is all most older people need. If you're super keen, you can maybe get in 3 or 4 days a week. But that again is probably the person who's pushing the envelope and maybe trying to set some PBs, or they're competing in a master sport or something of that nature.
Or they just love the social aspect as well.
That too, yeah. They're hooked.
So you've mentioned the Positive Aging Summit a few times in our conversation. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So, some colleagues like Tim Henwood, I've done research and known him for probably 20 years. He's an exercise physiologist based in Adelaide. So he'd been working at Southern Cross Care. Can't remember his exact title, but it was health and wellness, I think he was. During his 6 or 7 years there, set up some amazing gyms, again, with that HER equipment. Great exercise physiologists and other exercise assistants supporting them, delivering great exercise programs for their community, respite, and residential aged care. So, yeah, him and a group of people around him have thought some aged care conferences can be a little bit focused perhaps on the carer aspects and providing technology or a carer to support people. And while that is still important, what the conference was really focusing on was the government's what they call reablement. So reablement is allowing the older person to regain the functional ability and those physical capacities that underlie that to remain independent and be able to do the activities that they wish to do. So that typically means, again, that exercise is one of those key aspects of that reablement. Other allied health professionals are really important as well. So some of these great aged care facilities will have podiatrists who are regularly assessing their clients. So again, simple things like neuropathies that reduce sensation in the feet and toes can be indicative of a host of other diseases. But again, they increase the risk of falls, stubbing your toe, even broken toes or lacerations that they aren't necessarily aware of that can cause massive complications. So those are just one example. Dietitians who are continually looking at aspects of individuals' food intake. So again, if the staff are getting some idea on Mr. or Mrs. Jones were given this portion of food for dinner, how much food's coming back off their plate, those sort of things. Hydration. So again, the dietitians, the kitchen staff, the general care staff who are looking at those sort of things can perhaps identify some malnutrition and dehydration issues before they become problematic. Dehydration can cause urinary tract infections, which can be really problematic in that space as well. So all these different aged care, I suppose what I would say are the exemplars of what residential aged care or community care can be. There are some great examples across the country. And what we are, I suppose, trying to promote is, while it's not necessarily super easy to set up these processes, it's a work in progress. Like, what are, similar to the exercise that I've been talking about, what are the progressions your facility can do to reach these standards? And even some of these facilities that have been developed recently, like the architecture of this Church of Christ facility in the Adelaide Hills was just amazing. That's just living there, it would be so much nicer than perhaps some facilities that are 40 years of age and might have more of a hospital feel to it.
I lost my train of thought before, but what I was going to say is what you're describing with these lovely facilities that you've described, but the ones that are willing to employ the exercise physiologist or the physiotherapist to deliver these good, really good training programs. I mean, I think it's something that all facilities should be aspiring to, and it
Mhm.
hopefully becomes a point of like a point of competition where they all lift their game because
And that's what we're hoping to see. And the one other big challenge in aged care, and I can see this with my mother from personal experience as well. All aged care facilities, from what I see, they try to encourage their residents to do things that are good for themselves. In saying that, and again, you can understand why, if a resident says no, you're not able to badger them to do so. So some of these facilities seem to have staff that, while they don't badger them, have developed sort of strategies that might be quite specific to each resident that actually are more likely to get them out of their room and to engage in these activities and do exercise classes. So having staff at multiple levels, so staff who are on the coalface working with the residents, they need to want to have that sort of that focus on reablement as well. They want to see Mr. and Mrs. Jones being as happy and as functional as possible. Middle management has to be able to support that. And then at the top of the chain, that facilities manager, and perhaps if they're a chain, even the entire chain's managers need to support certain things in principle and then perhaps put sort of funding in places for that as well. And based on annual budgets, that might not be available to next year. So there's lots of sort of stakeholders to get on board. So something we can all do to advocate again is if we have loved ones in aged care, if they're accessing community support, and again, navigating the aged care system to get support for our older relatives isn't simple. But again, the advisors who then discuss some of those options for you, some of them, again, might simply go, here's a carer to come in and help you look after your garden or your house or cook your meals. It would be great if you can then maybe ask them and have your loved one on board if they want to regain that function themselves. You asking the question, okay, I'm aware that is a temporary solution. I want to be able to do that again in, say, 3 months' time. What are the exercise or reablement options available to me in my community? Or again, in the aged care facility, if you don't think your mum or dad's getting that sort of options, talk to the management. Many of them will have suggestion boxes. So again, people in all different stages, allied health professionals and workers there, again, can advocate as well. So everyone can sort of make a little, I suppose, suggestion. And yeah, I love your idea of, in essence, each aged care facility competing to offer a better level of care than the next facility.
I hadn't thought about it as much until you were talking about the good ones and the programs they're providing. We have an aging population. As you said, your mother is in a facility. We all know someone, loved ones who are in facilities. They need to be more competitive, I think. People should be shopping around for ones that, if you're able to, but
Yeah, I agree. And again, if you're in a metropolitan region, you'll probably have a range of options. So we also looked at a range of options. The exercise wasn't as important for my mother because, again, she's physically functional. So it was more about what she sort of was happy with, also to a point being close to us as well, that we could visit her as well. So yeah, we made the choice with that, and that's gone pretty well.
You mentioned your colleague, Dr. Tim Henwood. I know you've recently created a podcast together called Stronger Through the Ages. How did that come to be, and what are you going to be talking about?
Yeah, so Tim and I have been doing research together. Much of it he's been working at, when he was working at University of Queensland, he had a co-appointment with Blue Care, which is one of the biggest chains in Queensland. He's just finished like a 6 to 7 year at Southern Cross Care in Adelaide. So the research we've been able to do has been embedded in those facilities really nicely across those years. So we've been able to translate evidence from the research into those programs. So because Tim and the staff he's worked with have seen those benefits firsthand of incorporating these progressive exercise programs and better allied health support across those areas, we thought one thing we could do was try to get that message out there a bit more. Early this year, even late last year, we had discussions about ways we could do that, and a podcast seemed an option. We had no experience of putting that together ourselves. So he got some support around him. His wife, Tamara, has been amazing as well. And that's where Stronger Through the Ages has come through. As of today, the 13th of June, we've had 2 episodes go to air on Spotify already. We've recorded 3 others already that will go out basically around 2-week increments. And what we actually have a meeting in about 2 hours later today about our next phase of recording. So at this point of time, we're thinking some of the presenters at the Positive Aging Summit that we just had are going to be great people to get on board. And these are going to include some, not just researchers or people offering these services. We're going to get some people on with lived experience as well. So there were some amazing people there, even individuals with dementia who were talking about their transitions through different aged care supports, and how they're still living their lives. Like this one gentleman mentioned getting back into surf lifesaving volunteering. He then also started competing, and he says he often finishes last, but he still loves it. So that sort of message, and he's now become a national, I think even an international dementia advocate who's in high demand to speak at a whole range of events to represent some level of that lived experience of people with dementia.
That's wonderful because I think it would be really helpful for people to hear
Mm.
from the lived experience. So I think that's great that you're going to
Yeah,
have
so
them
if we can
on.
get that sort of perspective, as well as the aged care providers who've navigated some of the challenges in putting these things into place, how they've done that at community care up to residential care, etc., we think that will complement sort of some of the scientific stuff we've focused a bit more on in the first few episodes and set the scene for its importance, and will demonstrate that across a variety of aged care and community sort of settings what the possibilities are, as well as how some of these people who've received and requested these services have actually benefited from it and what their experience of that actually has been. So I think that lived experience in particular will be really great to have because again, if you're a 70-year-old person experiencing some of those challenges of needing support in the home, hearing those stories from someone in your same situation would be so much easier to relate to than some, let's say, fit and healthy 20 to 30-year-old exercise physiologist or physio who looks really fit and gives off that exercise everyday vibe that you can do it as well and reap those rewards.
I've listened to your first two episodes and I found them really informative. And I think you have set the scene really well for those other conversations that you're going to have. So good
Thanks
job.
so much, Cass.
So, everything you've shared with us today, I think it's been a great conversation. I think it's going to be really helpful for people to be considering why it's important to do some form of resistance training, why it's important to look at keeping muscle on our bodies as we age, how it's so important for our strength. Is there anything else you'd like to say or share with our audience that we haven't covered today?
Probably not a huge amount of things, but in reality, I suppose the message I would like to give is I think living to an old age is a gift. Not everyone will receive that gift. For those who do, maintaining what we called health span is really important. So that's the amount of life you have where you're still fit and healthy, able to do most things yourself and not be dependent on others or medical devices to keep you alive and surviving. So exercise is a fundamental component of that. And realistically, as we age, the resistance, the balance, and perhaps that gait retraining are the three fundamentals. Because if you do have those abilities, you can then go off and do your aerobic activity. But if you don't have that sufficient level of leg strength, you can't do any exercise that enables you to get a cardiovascular health benefit. So incorporating at least 2 sessions a week, even if it's at home, doing those sit to stands, calf raises, lunges, etc., is a great way to start. If you can get a gym around you that you can find, again, similar to the aged care discussion we just had before, try different gyms. Most gyms will give you at least a free session or a trial week. See if you like the gym. Is the vibe you? Are there some older adults, even focused gyms in your region, or at least those that offer classes or have trainers who are comfortable working with you? Those are definitely things to do. A lot of activities can give you some of those benefits as well. So try to find those modified sport opportunities, those social activities. And every time you think about why you're exercising or this feels hard, again, just think of what this is going to do for me. So again, if it's playing with the grandkids, getting on and off the floor with them because they're playing something on the ground, can you do that easily? Can you carry them into bed? Can you still look after your garden? And realistically, resistance training is almost that holy grail of youth that will allow you to continue to do all those activities that bring meaning to your life so that for the vast majority of your life, you can do everything that you wish to do and reap the rewards of all that hard work you've done in your younger and middle age and be able to retire at a point, and then enjoy the rest of your life.
That's beautiful. And as you said, it is a gift to live longer, and it's not something we should take for granted. And what we're trying to do here is spread awareness and encourage people to consider, especially when you're in midlife and as you're aging. As you said, with the technological advancements and advancements in pharmaceuticals, we're living to longer ages now, the lifespan. But let's consider what we want our health span to look like, our quality of life. So, as you said, it's a relatively small investment across your week. 2 sessions of resistance training for maybe 30 minutes is going to improve your chances of living a quality life doing all the activities that you just mentioned. So,
Because realistically, if you want to have, as we get older, your grandchildren or great grandchildren, if you want to see them grow up and be a part of their life and have those memories, again, it's difficult to do that if you are in an aged care facility.
So, as this podcast is called Mind Your Being, could you share with us 3 personal practices that you use to mind your own being?
Yeah, so the resistance training, getting to the gym 3 to 4 days a week, and jujitsu, which is a lot of resistance training as well, trying to overcome someone else who's trying to submit you, is a big part of that. I walk almost every day. So we've got a little dog, Millie, a Pomeranian pug cross, who's getting older as well. She's all 9.5, so doesn't walk as well as she used to. So I'm learning a lot more patience because she's stopping and peeing and sniffing on everything and walks a lot slower. And when I'm out, when I walk, the other thing I really focus on for me personally is to try to be in the moment. I live really close to some beautiful lakes on the Gold Coast, so walking around those lakes, particularly early morning or around sunset or even in the evening where the lights of all the houses are on the lake. So that can be really beautiful. I live close enough to the beach that I often will walk for close to an hour on the beach, jump in the water, even in winter, and the bush, yeah, hiking a bit as well. So those sort of things. And if that was one or combined, the other thing is just to be, I suppose, grateful for what my life has given me and try not to be, I suppose, comparing myself or my situation to someone else and being grateful for all the great stuff around me.
That's beautiful. Thank you. We mentioned your podcast, Stronger Through the Ages. Can you tell the listeners where else they can find you if they want to find out more about you?
There's my profile at Bond University that talks a bit about my research, all the research outputs if anyone's interested. So you can access some of them through that profile. There's also something called ResearchGate, so research and then GATE, where you can find copies of those articles that you might not be able to get through the publishers of embargoes without paying $30 or $40 or something ridiculous for it. I also am somewhat active on LinkedIn and Twitter, or X as it's now called. I will typically promote some of the stuff that we're doing and some of the amazing people around us in the industry or colleagues at Bond University at the same time. So those are probably the ways people can catch up with what we're doing if they're interested.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on today, and thank you for being so generous with your time. I think it's been a great conversation.
Thanks very much, Cass. It's been a pleasure talking to someone who shares the same interests.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Mind Your Being podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please follow the show wherever you get your podcasts and share it with a friend who might enjoy it too. If you have a moment, please leave a quick review. It really helps others discover the podcast. Thanks again for being here. Take care, and until next time, mind your being.